All right, let's talk about some causes of the progressive movement. So the first thing to recognize is that the time period before was the Gilded Age, when we had all of the industry growth and urbanization growth and everything like that. And then we start to realize that there are a bunch of problems from the Gilded Age, and that leads us into the Progressive Era, where we're trying to find solutions and fix those problems from the Gilded Age. So some of the causes are going to be economic exploitation, okay, the formation of trusts and monopolies. They start exploiting natural resources, which leads into the conservation movement to try and save the environment. We also see terrible working conditions, like, for example, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, where 136 women died when the factory caught fire and the doors were locked and they couldn't get out, and some of them actually jumped from the 9th, 10th, or 11th floors of the factory. And so that's going to lead us to things like doors have to be able to open from the inside out in buildings, and having working sprinkler systems and having working fire escapes, because the building fire escapes were actually not rotted, but rusted. We also see low wages, and so we're going to start to see pushes through unions for higher wages and things like that. Politically, we're going to see political corruption as a big problem from the Gilded Age that's going to lead to solutions in the Progressive Era. So things like political machines maintaining power through bribes and voter intimidation. We're also going to see big businesses using a little bit of that, especially with their own individual workers. And that's going to lead us not only to the Populist Party, especially with farm prices and farm political power decreasing, but also to the political reforms like initiative, referendum, secret ballot, all of those kinds of things. Politically, we're also going to see that the big businesses are controlling the House and the Senate, not only in the federal government, but also in the state governments. We have a very laissez-faire government going on. And so we're going to try and decrease that corruption during this time period. We also have a lot of social injustices that progressive reformers are going to try and fight, including things like child labor, unsanitary living conditions like the tenements and slums, unsafe food and medicine because there were no regulations. And so some meatpacking plants, you'll read an excerpt from The Jungle, but they would put anything into the sausage that was in the factory and just happened to fall in, or use rotten meat to actually include, don't take it out, just include it anyways. Racial, gender, ethnic inequality. We're going to see the women's rights movement begin from the gender inequality. We're going to see the civil rights movement, the first wave of the civil rights movement with Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois and Ida B. Wells with the racial inequality, ethnic inequality. We're going to see that kind of working with immigrant groups. So the goals of the progressive reformers are going to be to increase economic opportunity for people in the country, to increase democracy, to make government more accountable to citizens, to make government less corrupt, increase social justice so we have a fair and just distribution of wealth. There is going to be a socialist movement, like a communist movement within the United States, but there's also just a movement to, equalize, so it's not just the top 1% controlling 88% of the wealth in the country, but maybe they're controlling 50% of the wealth, making sure that there are opportunities for everybody within society. So who's doing the majority of this work are going to be middle-class women. They're following this idea of the social gospel, which is a religious idea that, as Jesus in the Christian faith says to take care of the people around you, middle-class women are going to start having leisure time, and actually start to see all of these problems through the muckrakers, which we'll talk about in a second, and they're going to start to make some changes. We're also going to see 3 presidents become known as our progressive presidents, Roosevelt, Taft, and Wilson, and each one of them is going to have focuses that they're going to work on. And the last thing is that they're going to be progressives who write literature and essays to expose the abuses. So the best example would be Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. Ida Tarbell writes about Standard Oil to make sure that people know about these problems so then they can go and fight these problems. So that's a very fast overview of the causes and who is participating in the movement.